I'm Peter Lee, and this is Newsbud's China Watch. This week, Plan Trump. If North Korea doesn't give up its nukes, we screw China. Plus, meet Miles Kwok and the weirdest Donald Trump statue yet. This was the week of signaling to and by North Korea. First off, DPRK Army Day on April 25th passed without an ICBM or nuclear test. Signal 1. DPRK is respecting US and Chinese red lines for now. In case you have any doubt that these are the red lines, here's how China's semi-official Global Times concluded a recent editorial on North Korea. If North Korea does not carry out its 6th nuclear test or launch intercontinental ballistic missiles, then hope remains on the peninsula. Instead, Kim Jong-un pleasured himself with a massive live-fire exercise at the North Korean seacoast. And North Korea fired another non-ICBM missile, which apparently failed shortly after launch. I say apparently because maybe it was intentionally destroyed downrange of the North Korean launch site so it wouldn't splash into international waters. Resentment at North Korea for shooting missiles into international waters unannounced is apparently real, and maybe this was North Korea's way of getting a test in while limiting the public relations damage. U.S.-North Korea messaging was laid out by Rex Tillerson as he presided over a UN Security Council meeting attended by a murderer's row of global heavyweights and welterweights. Tillerson himself, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, the UK Foreign Minister Boris Johnson, the Republic of Korea's Minister of Foreign Affairs Yoon Byung-se, and high-level officials from Japan and France. Tillerson's key remark was this.
Since 1995, the United States has provided over $1.3 billion in aid to North Korea, and we look forward to resuming our contributions once the DPRK begins to dismantle its nuclear weapons and missile technology programs.
The phrase you want to get your highlighter out for is begins to. Tillerson is saying the U.S. will resume aid to North Korea when it begins to dismantle its programs. In other words, the U.S. is not demanding unilateral denuclearization as a precondition for engagement. So, at the UN Security Council, the United States put itself on record in front of the international community as not pursuing regime change or regime destabilization and ready to open the goodie bag for North Korea even before it gives up its nukes. That's going to make Kim Jong-un feel okay. The other U.S. signaling at the meeting was a message to China that it has to tighten economic pressure on the DPRK and push it into negotiations with the United States. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi wasn't having it. In his statement, he rejected the idea that all that's necessary is for China to blockade North Korea and everything will work out great. With good reason, China considers U.S. hostility the root cause of North Korea's nuclear program, and therefore it's up to the United States to make the big moves, not China. Wang Yi took the position that the PRC is going to stick to the letter of the UN sanctions instead of supplementing them with further national measures, as Tillerson was hoping. Wang repeated his call for dual suspension. DPRK suspends nuclear and missile tests, US and ROK suspend military exercises, as the measure needed to make the negotiations happen. Wang Yi's bottom line: China is not the key to the Korean situation. The United States would beg to differ. China, as Rex Tillerson pointed out at the UN Security Council, accounts for about 90% of North Korea's foreign trade. Thanks to intensive PRC input during the United Nations sanction writing process, the DPRK can export 7.5 million tons of coal, which goes to China and provides a foreign exchange lifeline to the DPRK. And the DPRK can import petroleum products that are not used in military aviation. Those come from China and provide an energy lifeline to the DPRK. China is an absolute bear on keeping North Korean sanctions limited to those explicitly defined by the UN Security Council with PRC input. The way China declared its red line on further nuclear tests was to publicize its intention to widen the scope of UN sanctions on petroleum products, presumably enough to take the DPRK's cars and trucks off the road. Maybe China thinks a significant part of its North Korea trade is legal or defendable under the UN sanctions regime. Rex Tillerson apparently doesn't agree, judging from his pointed remarks and some pointed glances he gave Wang Yi.
The United States also would much prefer countries and people in question to own up to their lapses and correct their behavior themselves. But we will not hesitate to sanction third country entities and individuals supporting the DPRK's illegal activities.
So, the United States was not just sending a message of global resolve to North Korea at the UN Security Council. The US was also signaling to China that if China can't or won't deliver on North Korea, the US has enough buy-in from Europe and Japan to go beyond UN sanctions to secondary sanctions on China. Check out my current episode of Asia Brief, how a US fiasco in Macau birthed North Korea's atomic bomb, for the amazing story of how the George W. Bush administration's first try at financial secondary sanctions directly contributed to the detonation of the first North Korean nuclear device. Financial or not, a grinding struggle with the United States over secondary sanctions is probably not where the PRC wants to be right now. And China really is not terribly happy with the DPRK nuclear program, because if the DPRK tests its way to a robust, miniaturized warhead, the first place that warhead is going to be is on a medium-range missile that targets Japan, South Korea, and China, not the United States. China and the rest of the region really doesn't want that. So maybe the PRC will apply some more meaningful pressure on the DPRK to denuclearize. I'm guardedly hopeful that with PRC encouragement, the US and DPRK might be able to negotiate something. With the US and PRC red lines on ICBM and nuclear tests, the North Korean string has pretty much run out, and Kim Jong-un might decide now's the time to cash in his chips with the United States. Make a deal with the US, in other words, and hope that China's backing will be enough to keep the United States from doing a Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi on Kim Jong-un. In other words, renew its regime change shenanigans as soon as North Korea has abandoned its nuclear defenses. Which the United States will try to do, in my opinion. Make no mistake about it. The US will insist on a complete win, total denuclearization. North Korea is not going to be allowed to keep a couple nukes as a security blanket. And any deal would be packaged with an intrusive verification regime that would give the US a mechanism to meddle in North Korea forever. Given the dismal US record in straight dealing with small adversarial regimes, I think it may come down to China to act as a guarantor of any deal and provide the genuine financial and security assurances that the DPRK needs in order to make the deal work. Given the level of mistrust between North Korea and China, and the PRC's historical resort to the crudest kind of arm twisting in its dealings with the DPRK, it's a major challenge for China, a major test for China's capacity and sincerity to raise its game to do that leader of Asia thing, in other words, and China might not be up to it. More likely scenario, I'm afraid, is that things just muddle along, complicated by some heightened rancor between the US and China after the North Korea talks stall. After all, the key ICBM and nuclear test red lines have been drawn, and the only country that really wants to end North Korea's isolation is North Korea. And without the space to continue its weapons development, its opinion doesn't count for too much. Another country whose opinion doesn't seem to count for too much is South Korea. In the middle of all this careful jockeying at the UN, Donald Trump announced South Korea should pay for THAAD, the Theater High Altitude Area Defense System that China hates so much. As he put it in an interview with Reuters, I informed South Korea it would be appropriate if they paid. It's $1 billion system. It's phenomenal. Shoots missiles right out of the sky. Meanwhile, the Pentagon was probably running around in circles yelling, "No, no, 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 no," if a building could do that, because the whole strategy of slipping THAAD into South Korea without a bruising political fight was to say it's to protect alliance military forces. It's operated by the US and we're paying for it. All South Korea has to do is provide the land. The last thing the United States wants to do is, in Trump speak, put THAAD on the ROK political table. Just the opposite. It is rushing THAAD into South Korea, under the radar, if I may put it that way, so it will be operational before South Koreans vote in their presidential elections on May 9 and possibly put a China-friendly THAAD skeptic, Moon Jae-in, in office. So, National Security Advisor H.E. McMaster immediately popped up on Fox News to state that the U.S. was still paying for THAAD. Don't worry about it. Might be too late for that. Moon has a big lead over the inevitable U.S.-friendly centrist millionaire candidate Ahn Cheol-soo. If conservatives are unable to cobble together some Stop Moon strategy and he becomes president, there's a good chance that the THAAD deployment will be revisited in the context of a fresh look at China and North Korea relations. And I'm guessing China's North Korea diplomacy, or lack thereof, is in a holding pattern until May 9. When it sees whether Moon makes it into office, and China wants to reward him for backing off on THAAD with a China-led breakthrough on North Korea during his presidency. A Moon presidency would be a significant blow to U.S. plans for Asia. It would make South Korea the second treaty ally after the Philippines to drift into China's massive economic and geopolitical orbit. Allies aren't supposed to do that. They aren't supposed to wander off and play with the opposing team, and when they do, the U.S. is determined to do something about it, like it's apparently doing in the Philippines. In the Philippines, pro-Duterte press claimed back in December 2016 that it had seen an 18-month plan that the United States ex-ambassador to the Philippines, Philip Goldberg, had allegedly developed to drive Rodrigo Duterte from office. The supposed plan, quote, calls on the U.S. government to employ a combination of socio-economic, political, diplomatic moves against Duterte to bring him to his knees and eventually remove him from office, and to deepen ties with Philippine officials, parentheses the opposition, the police, military, and leaders in the region who share the U.S. concerns over Duterte. As to the U.S. role, opposition actors across the political spectrum look at the U.S. for cues, and our influence is much greater than our footprint. Pretty plausible. Speaking of cues to the Philippine opposition, here's a U.S. cue, courtesy of the New York Times editorial board on April 25th. It concludes, "This is a man who must be stopped." Whoa! The background of this is that a critic of Duterte's drug war has filed a request that the International Criminal Court put Duterte on trial for crimes against humanity. It comes on top of calls by the domestic opposition to impeach Duterte, a concerted Western public relations human rights campaign against Duterte for the brutal drug war, and overt pushback by pro-U.S. Philippine defense and diplomatic officials against Duterte's China-friendly policies. Inevitably, indignant and ignorant liberal critics have tagged Duterte as a dictator, which is a code word for elected leader U.S. doesn't like and wants forced from office. So, if there is a Goldberg plan to overthrow Duterte, it's unfolding according to schedule. And it will probably continue, despite Donald Trump's obliviousness to, or disregard for, the subtleties of U.S. geopolitical machinations. In a bookend to his THAAD gaffe, on April 29, Trump invited fellow Obama hater Rodrigo Duterte to visit the White House, to the synchronized outrage of the globalist media NGO Foreign Policy Network. It's becoming clear that Trump administration Asia security, military, and diplomatic hands have a plan for Asia, and they are going ahead with it. But Donald Trump doesn't bother with sweating the details of the plan, or maybe even bothering to school himself in what exactly the plan is. Finally, Miles Kwok. If you haven't heard a lot about Miles Kwok, maybe it's because the US media hasn't figured out yet exactly what to do with him. Miles Kwok is a Chinese millionaire living in the United States. He apparently amassed his millions in a rather sleazy fashion and is aware of a lot of sleazy things in the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party. The one allegation that attracts everybody's attention is Kwok's heavy hinting that Wang Qishan is corrupt. Wang Qishan is a vital ally of Chinese leader Xi Jinping. He's also Commandante for Xi Jinping's pervasive anti-corruption campaign, which is meant to remove corruption and also consolidate Xi's position as unquestioned and unquestionable leader of the Chinese Communist Party. Unambiguously, the PRC is unhappy that the Miles Kwok story is getting covered. Intense Chinese pressure and the threat of retaliation are definitely in the air. The PRC government issued an Interpol red notice asking for Kwok's detention for his role in some scam. A video from one of Kwok's ex-associates characterizing him as a dirtbag found its way onto Chinese social media. Kwok's Twitter and Facebook accounts have been blocked and unblocked, and, most strikingly, Chinese diplomats were allegedly able to pressure Voice of America to truncate an interview with Kwok. Message, in my opinion: the PRC intends to drop the hammer on any U.S. outlet that makes a front-page deal out of Miles Kwok's Wang Qishan story. It might be too late in the game for the Wang allegations to do much beyond embarrassing Xi Jinping, so I think U.S. media outlets are asking themselves, how important is it to our journalistic mission to totally piss off Xi Jinping? Good question. Right now, Kwok's Twitter account is pretty much all Chinese tweets and pictures of Miles Kwok looking awesome, with his catchphrase, "It's all just beginning." If Miles Kwok is able to assemble a savvy English-speaking team and reinvent himself as a grifting billionaire who saw the light and turned idealistic crusader, as Mikhail Khodorkovsky did against Putin, maybe he's a horse worth backing. But if he can't break out of the shady millionaire publicity hound frame, pushing his story might not be worth the enormous business risks to U.S. media outlets. We'll see. Finally, there's this from a park in the city of Luoyang in China. Nobody knows what to make of this. That's what makes it so great. And for an equally inexplicable reason, this masterpiece was removed by park authorities. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, go to newsbud.com, where you'll find exclusive content available only to the Newsbud community, including my Asia Brief reports, and the opportunity to interact with me on the China Watch show pages. You can also enroll in the Newsbud Academy for Dr. Philip Kovacevich's course on U.S. Anglo-Russian geopolitics. And most importantly, you'll also find a link to the current Newsbud Kickstarter campaign. See you there. I'm Peter Lee for Newsbud's China Watch.
Hi, I'm Sibel Edmonds, founder and editor of Newsbud, a 100% people-funded media. 15 years ago, with multiple invocations of state secrets privilege and several gag orders, I became the most classified person in US history, despite this thing called the Constitution. Why? Because without a free and independent media, the Constitution did not stand a chance against a despotic government. The solution was not changing the culprit media. It was to become one that would be independent by strictly adhering to the following principles. No funding from foundation billionaires, aka sugar daddies. No dependency on corporate advertisement. No affiliation with the divide and conquer partisan groups. A 100% people-funded media with integrity. Here at Newsbud, our formula is very clear and very simple. Investigative reports, information, and analysis delivered professionally, independently, and with integrity. We have brought on board worldwide recognized and respected geopolitical experts. Our technical team members work around the clock in order to bring to you impeccably produced and edited multimedia presentations. Now, let's meet some of these incredible Newsbud team members.
Hi, I'm Brock West from Australia.
I'm Jeff DeRiso from Texas.
Hi, I'm Spiro, and together we are the Newsbud production team.
Every day, we are working hard behind the scenes to create the videos you see and enjoy at newsbud.com.
With our combined years of experience, we aim to create the highest quality media that our supporters demand.
But we're only one half of the Newsbud production team.
Together with our expert hosts,
we are producing daily content
on all the important issues that matter to you.
Hello friends, I'm Professor Filip Kovacevic. I'm the host of the weekly Russian Newspapers Monitor. In the show, I discuss the front page news stories from the major Russian newspapers and tell you what the Russian political elites are reading and writing.
I'm Kurt Nimmo, the producer of the Geopolitical Report, which you can find on Mondays on the Newsbud website. The Geopolitical Report analyzes foreign policy and other current events that the mainstream media refuses to cover.
Hi, I'm Constitutional Attorney John W. Whitehead, President of the Rutherford Institute. Be sure to watch my new show, Battlefield America, every Tuesday morning at Newsbud. We'll be talking about the many ways in which our freedoms have become casualties in the police state's all-out war on the American people.
I'm Peter Lee, and I host Newsbud's China Watch, which airs with a fresh episode every Wednesday morning. Watch it. I'm committed to reporting important news and perspectives on the rise of China and trends in Asia that are reshaping our entire world.
I'm Jeff DeRiso, host of the show Mind Hack. Mind Hack is the show that explores the intersection between the workings of the human mind and the explosion of innovation in the fields of digital technology. So join me each Friday for Mind Hack, only on Newsbud.
Newsbud also offers weekly special productions available only to Newsbud activist community members. In partnership with our supporters, our growing membership base continues to drive our reach, growth, and effectiveness. However, Newsbud's continued success depends on you. Make a stand and join the Newsbud media revolution.
More than ever, alternative media is under attack, and that's why we need your help.
It's time to wake up, America, get formed, get active, and stay in the battle.
Please join me in being a part of the movement for real, honest news.
It is amazing to me what Newsbud has accomplished in less than 1 year. Just imagine where we will be in 1 year from now with your support.
Contribute to the Newsbud Kickstarter and join the Newsbud community.
Support our Kickstarter campaign.
support this 100% people-funded media platform.
There's corporate mainstream media. There are pseudo-alternative propaganda and agenda-driven news outlets. There are many junk sites delivering junk news. And then there is Newsbud, an independent and professional information source, a nonpartisan medium where people come together rather than being divided. You, our generous supporters and community members, are the reason we exist. You are the power that has kept us operating and expanding towards this amazing success. And you are the sole determinant of the continuation and steady expansion of Newsbud operations. Please join us. Join the Newsbud movement by kindly and generously pledging towards this 100% people-funded media with integrity. Yes, we have accomplished a lot, but this is only the beginning, and that is my promise to you.